Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this Scriptcase training. Today we are creating a automobile portal or platform used by a mechanic workshop. So we can continue from where we left off, and we had previously created the following applications which you're seeing on screen now, which is the countries, country document stages, as well as the times appointments. So I'm going to jump ahead and climb here into the customers folder. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and again select application and batch applications. And here I'm going to now select the customer folder or the customer table, indicate a form and grid and go next. Now I will select again here to edit and then go finish. Okay, so the two applications will now be created and automatically linked together. So for the customer table, I'm going to go ahead and disable the search, detail, summary and chart. And within the grid, I'm going to select here, well, leave it here. Well, let's change it here to automatic, and for the table width, we're going to go 0. Okay, so for the edit fields, let's select edit fields. And from here, I'm going to first of all remove the customer ID, move the customer name up, the number document we want, the birthday, I think we want the address there first, so let's add the address. We want a phone number, the birthday, gender, and say email address. In fact, gender, we can actually move that down here also. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the country ID in here as well as the docx country. Okay, so I will be removing those in a moment and you will see why. Okay, so I'll come here to fields and I will adjust those two fields first of all. So the country, and then here for countries, I'll scroll down, and the lookup method, I'll select automatic and create the select. And here I will select then the countries table, indicate that the country field will be displayed. Say yes, and then select the connection. Now I'm going to jump ahead here to the country X documents field and apply the same. So, but this time, again, automatic, and this time we're going to select the country documents table. Okay, and then we'll leave the document type. I'll okay that, and then I'm going to choose the connection again. And we'll save that, and I will return back here to edit fields. Now I'm going to drag these back down again, so they're no longer visible within the grid. And if I run the grid application, we'll see that they are no longer displayed there. Okay, but now when I go to details, for instance, if I would leave details on, then we would have that relevant information available. So if you come here to grid modules, and if you wanted to enable details, which I'll do, and then run the application again, and now if I select the details, the country information as well as the country document that is provided is then also indicated within the details. So I will leave that there for the time being. If you want to remove it, then you can go ahead and remove this option. I think in the default project, we actually removed this field. Remove this option, sorry. Okay, so we want to then come here to layout, header and footer. I will remove the date and change the title to customers list. Okay, I'll save that. And have a quick look here. We have here an email field. So then if I come back here, select the email field, and then I can change the data type here to email. I'll select that, go run again. And now within our grid application, the email field will be clickable and will also open our email client ready to email that customer. Okay, so when we come here to the grid, we can see on edit that the form isn't generated yet. So let's go jump into the form. And then within the form, if I come here to edit settings, well, we'll remove the customer ID. And then the rest of the information here is really entirely up to us if we want to capture all of this for the relevant party, or if we want to remove some of these fields. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the phone number too also. I don't think that's really needed, or the birthday, that's again up to you, it's your choice. And then what I'm going to do then is also adjust these fields straight away. So here for customer email, we'll change that to email type. For the country documents, I will change that, scrolling down, to a select type. I'll apply the same also here for the country ID. Scrolling down and select. And then we have here the active status. And for that, I'm going to use a checkbox. Okay, so I save that. And then I can come here to fields. And then we have the data types automatically provided for each of these fields. Okay, so for the country, we need to actually select here a lookup. And we want to select then the country table. So I'll come here to table countries, have the country defined, indicate yes, and we will choose the connection. I'll also again use a title so that it is not automatically populated on a new form. And then the document X country, I should maybe adjust these around so that they are below each other. Now for this one, I will come here, select, and then the country documents, select the document type, indicate yes, choose the connection, and again we could use connect the title if you want to. I'm not going to in this case, because what we're going to do is, let me first of all reposition that field so that it is below the country. If I move here the email address up, I think that's quite an important one. And then the number document, I'm going to move that down here below the country. In fact, let's move the phone number down here and the gender, and also then the address below the country and document types. So if I then save that, and if I go ahead and run the form now, okay, and then within the form we have here the customer gender, the active status, and so on. Now we want to adjust these fields. So for active, first of all, I will use here a switch, and then change the lookup setting to manual, and then just say yes, and then insert 1 as the value, and then insert that. Okay, and then for the country ID, we could then select here, if I just double check here the table, so here I'm going to check the values of this table first of all, so country documents, and then the options here is ID country, and then here within the country, I'll come back to this, I'll then say we want to reload this other field, so we actually need to apply that here, and then order from where ID country equals, and then we want to apply the field variable country underscore ID. Okay, so now if I go ahead and run that, now we have the drop down menus there. We don't have no differentiation here or selection yet, so we need to apply that to the field. So if we select in the country ID field, and if I scroll down some more, we can enable here the Ajax processing and switch the field on. So now if I go run, and then we have our field. If I go add new, for instance, now if I select, say, I know that we have some documents from Mexico, so I select Mexico, then the relevant documents for that country are then provided. Okay, so for the customer gender, we also want to apply then maybe a drop down menu there. So let's go ahead, select the customer gender field, and we can then scroll down and select the data type select. And again here we can select a manual option, and then we can say male, for instance, add M, insert, and then female, and then an F, and insert that also. And then if I run the application again, within the form, we now have a drop down menu for the gender. The active status is with our select button, and all our fields are there pretty much ready. So I'm going to scroll up then and come here to settings, apply 100% width. I'm going to change the table width to 600 pixels. And then we can also come here to layout, header and footer. Now do notice that I have the automatic saving enabled, so that when I change various elements, it then automatically saves my selections. So here then I will add customer, and I'll just leave it as like that, customer, and say here we can then say update customer. We could even add here, add customer, look at that. We'll just leave it customer. Okay, and then if I run that again, we have now a smaller form, We have our 100% fields. Now we may want to also then come back here to the layout and blocks, and then move the label position to top, so that we have then a view like so. Okay, so that's our customer form and grid ready. So if I go ahead and run the customer grid now, I can then edit the customer details. I can also use here the add new customer detail buttons. And of course, as previous, we can remove any of these column sorting export options if we want to. I'm going to leave them there for the time being, and you can make those adjustments yourself if you want to. Okay, so then we have then the next table, which is then the automobiles. So for automobiles, we want to then track all of the cars, brands, and so on. So again, here I'm going to use the batch applications. And then here we have then car brands, car models. We then also want the card for customers, and we have a form and a grid. And let's then go next. Okay, so we could again make further adjustments here for the type of form that we want to generate. So for the brands, maybe a multiple rows, and the models, say multiple rows also. And then I'm going to select to edit, and then finish. And the forms will be, or the applications will be generated again and opened, ready for me to make further adjustments. Okay, so with all the applications open, we can then go ahead and start making our adjustments to the forms. So we have here, first of all, the CarX customers, and I will remove here the search, detail, summary, and chart. We could leave those there if we wanted to. I'm going to remove them for the purpose of this video, and then I'm going to come here to edit fields. Okay, so here I'm going to remove the ID. We can then move the customer name we should have here, customer ID, customer name. Actually, I've gone and created a wrong application here. So let me correct that. I'm going to close here the CarX customer. The form I will leave open. We will need this form. I will return here to home, and what I'm going to do is deselect all of them here, and then select here the grid table customer, and I'm going to delete that grid application. Okay, so then we need to create the application I should have done in the first place. So new application, and then grid. And now what we want to do then is actually select the view. So if I come then to table, and then we down the bottom here, we have the CarX customer. Okay, so this way we're not going to be viewing the actual data. We have then specific data here defined for this grid. I'll go create. Okay, so then I want to link this application to the CarX customer form we have here. And what we will do is actually create an insert and a separate edit form, which we'll do shortly. So first of all, let's go ahead and adjust these fields. So we have here, first of all, the customer name, the customer ID can go, the email address, where is that? That's there. And then we want the number document, the phone number, the address, the plates of the car, the brand of the car, the model of the car, and also the current status being active. So if I go ahead and save those, okay, and then within our application, we can, well, let's go ahead and run that first of all and check out the new grid. And we see here the active status. We have here also details, so we can view more information if we wanted to. And what I'm going to do here on this one is I'm going to highlight that active. So if I come here to events, and then on record, and then in here, if I go then if, and if I add in my brackets, and we're going to go active equals 0, okay, and then if I open and close my curly brackets, and then here again we want to use the field active equals no, and I need to add some hyphens around that, okay, and then next up, sorry, I need to add that around the field here and delete that. Okay, so then we want to also apply a macro to this, which is then the SC field style. So SC field and style. And then again, we open, close our brackets for this one. Let's do that as well, ready. And we define our field active. It should be inside of the brackets, thank you, active. And then we can go comma. We can then include a color, a pixel size. So let me add here the color first of all, say hash E53242. Let's go along with that. And then here we have a size of say 13 pixels. And then we also want to indicate the color. So the first color here is the field. Okay, so like the background color. And now we're going to define the color of the font, so the text. Okay, and then we can also define the font style. So if I say Arial sans serif, spell it right, serif. And we close that. Okay, it's closed, and comma again, and then we can say bold. Okay, so we're applying specific styling to our field there. And now if I go ahead and close this one, so that part is done. And then what we want to do then, if it is active, okay, so right at the top here it is not active. Add that there, inactive. Okay, and then bottom here we add active. So if I go say field active, okay, and we want to then also apply an else statement. And then we can open and close this. And then here equals yes, like so. Okay, so if I go ahead and run that now, we will have our active status here customized with a yes, no. And we can see here the font is not white. So let me see here what I did wrong. So missing an F there. Run that again. There we go, and now we have our font also in white and our active status nicely highlighted. Okay, so and here's our customer view for the vehicles that they own. Again, we also have here the details, which yes, we're not going to view any details of this because there are some specific standards here. So if I come here to grid modules, I'm going to remove the detail, search, summary, as well as the chart, because they are not needed within this grid application. If I run that again, and then we have our grid without the details and also without any edit or insert, which we shall do shortly. So first of all, I'm going to change here the header and footer. I will remove the date again, and I'm going to say customers, customer X cars. Okay, and save that, and I can run that again. And our grid is ready for our buttons, which we shall do shortly. Okay, so let me first jump into here the car models, and we will complete here the car brands also next, and then we will jump here onto the car X customers and complete this grid, or the grid which we were just working on, and add the insert and edit buttons. So first of all here for the car models, if I go edit, I can drag here the model down, I'll place the brand up. And of course we could adjust our labels if we wanted to. To save time, I'm not going to do that. And then down here in fields, I will select the ID brand field, and I will apply a lookup method being automatic. And then that can then select our car brands. There we go. And indicate the brand field. Okay, save that, apply the connection. Now if I go ahead and run, that is then automatically our brand or car model list ready. Okay, so of course we can edit here, we can add new. We don't need the detail. So if I jump up here, go to models again, or modules, sorry, and I will remove the summary, detail, search and chart, and only leave the grid. Okay, so we could apply an automatic width here. I'm just going to leave it 100%, and then we have our settings. So I could then again go to the edit, but we don't have our form generated yet. So that's one of the next things we want to do. So of course here to finish this one, we want to apply then the new title. I'm just going to add models, and then we can jump to the brands grid. So I'll apply the same here, remove the search, detail, summary and chart, and just leave the grid. In the edit fields, now we only have two fields here, which is then just the brand, and I will just remove the ID. And then we can go ahead and run that. And then we have our list of brands available. Okay, so as with previous, we could just go ahead here to the modules for the form and actually remove the grids and not have them at all, and just have them here as a multiple records, which is what I'd added when we had created these. So again, this is going to be your choice on how you want your application to be and how many applications you actually want to create within your project. So if you're limited on space, maybe you'll just want to use one application. So I'm going to change this back to a single record and then come here to edit fields and remove here the ID brand. I'll save that and I'm going to leave the format like so. Okay, so it'd just be the option here for the brands. If I come back to brands, run the grid, and now if I click here on edit, I can then adjust the brand of the vehicle. Or of course I can go add new and add a new brand. Now, because brands are all going to be unique, it's going to be quite important that we ensure that we have a unique key. So I will apply a unique key, and there I will say brand is the unique key. So we do not add any new brands that are no longer relevant. Okay, so then we have car models, and we want to apply the same here. Again, single record, edit fields. Here I will drag the ID model down, adjust the brand up, save that. The brand I can also automatically select here the data type as select, and that will then update here with fields within the fields value, and I don't have to make that change then again here. Okay, so for the brands, again, we want to use an automatic select. So if I come here and select within our drop-down menu, car brands, leave the brand, select that, choose the connection. We can also use a title if we want to, and then run the form application. And we have then all of the brands available, as well as then the model. Okay, so if I then run our car brands or car models grid, we can check both those out quickly. And we have then the add new, we can add then a new brand and as well as then a new model. Okay, so for the car brands, we would then also want to select a unique key. So in this case, we're going to go ID brand and then model, click add, and that will then ensure that the model plus the ID brand are unique. Okay. So then if we say save that, this will then make sure that when we add new models in here, that we do not select another one. So if I go Audi, if I go add new, and if I select here Audi and A1, and then go add, it will tell me that there is already one available, and it will not allow the insert, which is one of the mistakes we had when I first showed the project within the first video, as it was a setting that I had missed during the initial creation. Okay, so next up then, if we have here the CarX customers. Okay, so for the CarX customers, we actually want to have this as two separate forms. So what I'm going to do is make some adjustments here. So if I come here to field positioning, we have a lot of fields there, and I will remove here the ID. And then we can also make some adjustments here for the layout and so on if we wanted to, as well as, include or remove fields that we do not want to have included within this. So now, if I then come here to edit fields, I will adjust the customer ID. I'm just going to drag it up. Like I said, this is just a habit of mine. And then for the customer ID, I'm going to use a select field. So I come down and then choose select. So my browser seems to be a bit sluggy today. Okay. For active, again, we'll use a checkbox. So you select checkbox. Then for the model ID, we need a select also. For the body style, we also need a select, or we can actually choose another option if we wanted to. I'm just going to go with the select option. We then also have the fuel type. Which will also be a select option. Okay. We have their color. Now we want this field to be a HTML color field. So we have here HTML color. Okay. And then I'm going to save that. Now our fields here will be ready, and then I can just simply select that and then make adjustments to each of the fields. So here for the customer, we then just need to select here within our automatic statement here, again create a select. We will then choose the customers table. There we go, table customer, and include the customer name. Okay, so then what we're going to do here is indicate the status. So whether the user or customer is active. So I'll say where active equals 1, and then that will ensure that we only have active customers provided within the select. Okay, so I'm actually missing the brand here. So let me come back here to edit fields and see where that is. We have here the model ID, and we should have brand here. I've gone totally blind for some reason. Body style. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add that. So I'll come here and add a new field. We'll go next. I'll say the type will be a select. I will not create a new block, even though we will add one shortly, and then I will call this field brand. Okay, and then from that we can then use this as a drop menu again and make sure that the correct models according to the brands are provided. So if I come down here and, well, we need to select here, use the lookup settings and select here the brand table. So car brands, have brand field displayed. Say yes, choose the connection also. I'm going to save that. Okay, so before I continue, well, in fact, let's go ahead and make these adjustments for these other fields. So we have here the fuel types. Okay, so there we have a select already. And for this one, we're just going to use a manual option. And then there we can type in diesel. Okay, forgive my spelling mistakes. I'm going to say petrol. And petrol again. Okay, we can insert that, and of course we can add then further options like gas or electricity or whatever other vehicles are, hydro and so on, that are going to be available in the next years. We have then also the body style. Now for the body style, again, we will use a select option, which we have created, and also use manual option. And then here we can then type in the SUV, the cabriolet, and other vehicle options for the body styles, of course. So then we have the model ID. And now this time we want to use our database again. So here I'll select the table, car models, ensure that the model is provided. And now we do also have the ID underscore brand. So let's remember that one. And then what we want to do here is where ID underscore brand equals, and then we want to apply our new field that we had just added, brand. Say yes, save that. And then within brand, we can then select here to use the Ajax and select the model ID and switch the field on. So that then when we select a brand, it will display the correct models accordingly. Okay, so then we have next up, we have the engine number, plates, chassis number, silk. We have here the color field. Now within the color field, if I scroll down, we have the option here to use a color palette. And if I select that, we can change or adjust the colors that will be then displayed within our application. So if I then run, we have then our form. Yes, of course. With an arrow, you have to check the manual, order by, model at line 1. Okay, so we'll see that in a moment. And then we have then the model ID here is not displayed. So if I come back here to models, model ID. And then we have the order by model. We don't need that. Okay, we can run that again. Okay, and we still have an error there. Okay, so we're not actually highlighting the brand yet. We haven't added that in here. So if we come here to edit fields, we have here our brand. Now that of course needs to be there first. And then for the brand, if I come here to the field, and what we want to do then is enable a default value. So that some value is initially provided. So here we have initial value, and I'll say defined, and I'm just going to go 1. Okay, so that will then remove the error message we were then receiving here, and we have a new one now. Okay, so we still have the brand issue there, but even though we have brands here displayed. So let's have another look at that. So, okay, so it seems like I just had to refresh the browser there a little. So I'll come back here to the fields. What we want to do then is actually create a layout, add block. And what I'm going to do is create a new block, and I'm going to call this one, say, details. Sorry, block 1 first of all, and then we can give it a label of details. And of course we can change that in a moment, no problems at all. So then once we have that up and running, we can then go ahead and make some changes here within the layout of our application. So we have here, first of all, the option to change the position of each application. So we can select line, below, beside, or line, and the next application. So the next block which we are using is what we actually want to change here. So I go next, and I'm going to use here tabs. Okay, so what that would do then, it will then create 2 tab applications. And if I come back here to edit fields, I can then adjust where these applications are located. So in the bottom here for say the details or additional information even, we can place here the body style, the serial number, the chassis number, the engine number, the plates, for instance. Well, in fact, let's leave the plates here. Maybe the fuel type as well. And of course we can move any other options there also. So if I go ahead and run that now, and then we can have, you can see the layout that we have now. We have now 2 tab applications, and the information is done there. So what we have here is the model year, and we have a comma there. So let's come back here to the fields, select here model, and then what we can do here is remove the regional settings and digital grouping. And if I run that again, we will then have the full year then displayed. Okay, so then what we want to do then is then actually replicate this form and then add it here into our CarX customers. So I'm going to close that form, come back here to home, and then what we can do is here the CarX customers. If I select copy, and then I'm just going to copy the name here. Okay, and if I say underscore add, well, underscore insert. Okay. And the other one here, I'm going to rename that to customers again, underscore edit. Okay, if I go okay. And now within our CarX customers, what I'll do is first of all apply a button. If I go new button, and here we can then add a link button, and I will call it to insert. Insert item will do, and then click create. Now for the button, what I'm going to then do is apply here a font awesome icon. So let's look here for car, and so I select this one. We can change the style of the button, so I'll go sweet alert OK, and we can then also change the label, add new vehicle. Okay, if I can spell vehicle correctly, that would help. Okay, so if I go ahead and run that, we will have there first of all a button now, add new vehicle. Of course it doesn't do anything yet, we do need to link it to our form. So by clicking the link button, I can then use here or select here the form insert, go next, and then we have the car ID. Now there should be no value for this one because we are inserting a new vehicle, so we can just leave that as no value and confirm. Okay, so we'll open it in the same window, and we don't want to enable update or delete here, so I will go save. And then we can also go ahead and create a new link, which this time will be the edit link. So if I go next, and then we can select here the car customer edit, go next, and then we can link that then to the ID car field and confirm that. Okay, so now here we do not want to insert, we only want update and delete. We can also change how the window is opened if we want to. I'm just going to leave it in the same window, and then go save. Okay, so now I would need to generate those applications. So if I go ahead and close each of these that we have open now, with all of them ready, or then generate the source code, generate the outdated applications, which will then include the 2 new forms we had just created or renamed and edited. And now when I run here the CarX customers, we have now an edit option, and we also have the add new vehicle option. Now we do have some buttons here, so we want to go ahead and remove those. They will not be needed. So I'll come back into the GridX customers, come to toolbar, and then we can remove here the items or the options. I will remove the insert item, which is our button, and remove here the form buttons, as well as all the export options here. Okay, so this one, I can move it down, and then we can run the grid application again. And now the add new button will disappear when you are live, okay? Because I have the security and everything all switched off in the back end. So if you have your settings in the back end set in a certain way, you will have the add new button no longer there. And then we can go details and add all our information. So we may want to change here the tab. So if I come back here into the form, which is then the insert, we can then also edit the edit if we wanted to. I'm just going to apply it to this one, and then we can change here. So change this one to details, and then we change this one here to information. Okay, so you will have one of these forms which will not have that, and then we will have that accordingly. Okay, so next up we need to continue on and create some of our other applications, because we are getting very short on time already, and we see we have 3 more folders here to create. Okay, so on to services then, and again we're going to use the batch applications, and this time we're going to create or generate the tasks, the services, and also the inventory. So again, we will select form and grid for each of those, click next, and we can then go straight to edit. And then with the applications open, we can start to make adjustments to each of these applications. So one of the first things we will be doing is then within each of the grids is applying first of all an event. So here we have on record, and here I'm going to add the active or inactive status that we had previously. I will save that and then come here to edit fields, and we have here the active, which we will be applying that to. I'll adjust the task, move that down, and then just run this grid application. So again, I'm just going to leave this one as it is. We have there the edit option, which will be available once the form has been generated, and we're going to jump straight to services. So again, we can remove all of the modules that we want to remove. Okay, we don't really need them for either of these grid applications. So as you may have noticed, I just skipped that on the tasks, and we're just jumping onto the services now. And again, if I go ahead and run this grid application, we can see that we have our edit, add new, all from the application. And we also have the active status there again. So let's come here to events on record, and then we can paste that in there again, copied from our previous application, and that will again adjust our active status to yes or no. And we have then all the information here. We could of course remove here the ID service. So if I come here to edit fields, I can drag that one down, and then we can include the service minutes or the date price or the days to next service within the grid. Go ahead and run that, and there we go. We have then all the information within our grid application, and then we can jump straight away to the next grid application. So here again, I will remove the modules, leave the grid running, come to edit fields, and here I will again remove the ID and jump straight to the events and on record. And again, let's paste the active status in there. We can run the grid application again, and we have then our grid of our inventory. Okay, so for the forms, well, I'm going to leave them as a single record. This should be quite quick and easy. We have then the ID tasks for the active status. So I'll jump that down, and let's apply a radio button this time around. So I come down to fields and then select the radio button active, and then go manual, and then we can say yes for 1, insert, and no for 0. Insert that, we can go ahead and run. There we have our radio button, yes, no. And then we can enable here the use switch and run it again. And it will be a little prettier with the new styling. Okay, so what I want to do is actually place them next to each other. So it's yes, no, and not yes, and then no below it. So I'll come here and apply 2 columns and run that again. We can then have the active status next to each other. So within the other forms, we've gone 100% on the fields. So let's apply that also. Here in settings, apply the 100% width. The table width, I will select 600 on this form again, and pixels for the table width unit. So if I run that again, and then we have our form ready. Okay, we could adjust again the block setting and adjust the header to above. I'm going to skip that now and save some time and jump straight to the services table. So here within settings, again, apply the 100% width and then go to edit fields. Of course, I didn't change the size there, so I should do that also. I'll remove the service down. The image is stored in the database. The active status, we need to change that. So again, let's apply a radio button here. Okay, and we can actually, I like to have that at the top, so I'm going to move that up. And then we can go save. There we have then price, public price, date price, days to next service, service minutes, and then the image. We don't really need anything else there. So one thing I did forget here in the settings was the width of the table. So let me quickly adjust that. Pixel 600. And then we can start jumping straight to our fields, starting with the active field. So again, here we want to apply a manual lookup. Yes, being number 1, insert. Then we can go no and 0, insert. Again, apply 2 columns. And let's go ahead and run the application. Okay, so we have here the description, and we can see here we have a P in there. So the description here should be a HTML editor. So let's come here, select HTML editor. Okay, and below that we can change the toolbar if we wanted to. We have some basic included options here, basic, clean, and full. So if I go full, and then if I run that, we will have then also a HTML editor for our form. Now we can see here, for instance, with this option I've selected, if I come down here again, I have the full option. Now do note that you can come here to edit and that you can make adjustments to this entire layout and also create your own templates as you want. As you see, I have a few there already. So I'm just going to skip that now, and that is then something you can do within your own time. So I will then go ahead and change this to the basic because it is much smaller. And then if I go ahead and save that, and then what I want to do is come here to the layout and blocks, and I want to move the labels above again so that the HTML editor fits a little better. Okay, so then we have here the public price, the standard price, the date is included here to the right. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to that also. The date price, and if I scroll down, I can then change the display position from right to below, or even select watermark if I like. I prefer the below, so that's what I'm going to select today. Okay, and there we have our service form ready. And if I go ahead then and run the services grid, and then go to edit, and there we have then our form ready to go. Okay, so then the final form is then the form table inventory, and this was a simple one again. So here I'll just go 600 width and select pixels, edit the fields, and we should just have the ID field here to adjust down. Save that. The active status again, I will use a radio button, save, come back here to fields on the left hand side, select active, and then again we can apply a manual lookup, yes, and number 1, insert, no, and 0, and again I will apply 2 columns. Oh, don't forget to insert that value, okay, and then the 2 columns, and then we can go ahead and run that again. And our next form for inventory items is also ready. Okay, so I will also enable here the use switch so that all of the radio buttons look the same. Okay, so that is all of our applications ready to go so far. We have then now created all of our route applications, the customer applications, the automobile applications, and the service applications. So within the next video, we will finalize the appointments and employee applications, as well as hopefully the admin applications. So thank you very much for watching part 2. I hope to see you again shortly in part 3, where we will then complete this project and finalize the final steps. So thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again soon.